Welcome. I'm Ukeme Isaac from Ultra Tech Systems. This is our first lesson in Excel, and in this lesson we're going to be looking at starting Excel, and we'll also be looking at the components or the features of the Excel window. So this is going to be a smooth journey. I just like you to follow along and try to ensure that you complete each lesson, and also take out time to practice. You have the exercise files for each of the lessons, and I just like to remind you that it is important that you take out time to practice, because competency can only come when you've consistently practiced what you've learned. Now let's start by starting Excel. So I like to just exit this particular window. There are different ways you can start or open or run or load or launch Excel. Now you can start Excel from the desktop, so you just click, if you have the Excel icon on the desktop, you just double click to open Excel, or you can just right click and then you click open. It's going to be the same thing. So let me just open and see. Beautiful. So we can just double click, just take your mouse pointer here, you double click, and then you would open Excel. Or like what I have here on mine, I've actually pinned my Excel icon to my taskbar. So this bottom part of the window is called the taskbar, and of course, you know, this is the desktop window. It's actually the window that appears after booting and when you have logged onto your system. So here I'll just click here once, and then my Excel will open. You can as well just use the start button. So here's the start button here. You just click start. You can easily just type Excel, or you just scroll down, then you find Excel and you click open. So those are three ways you can open Excel, but there's one more way that makes it another easier way. You can use the keyboard. Using the keyboard, you press Windows R. Just press the Windows key, like the key that has the start logo. Just press R and then you type Excel, just EXCEL, and then you press enter. So Excel will open. Again, I like to explain that again. You press the Windows key, you still hold it down, then you press R and you type Excel, EXCEL, and press enter. As soon as you've done that, the Excel window will open. Alright, so now you can see Excel is already welcoming me. Good afternoon. So that means I'm recording this lesson in the afternoon. Alright, so I have here the Excel welcome screen. So this is what we call the welcome screen. On the welcome screen here, the first thing we have here, we have the home. You can see we have the home, we have the new, we have the open. Alright, but let's start with the home. Under the home here, we can start a new blank workbook where we just want to start everything afresh. And here we have some templates. Templates are pre-designed formats you can use to start up your own work. So have different templates here, like sales report, like the planner, import template here. We have the expense report, and then the loan amortization and the blood pressure tracker. So if you click on more templates, you would definitely have other templates, and you can even search for templates online. Alright, so here we have the recent here, we have pinned. Recent here means recent workbooks. That's Excel files I've opened or saved recently. They are just lining up here. So I want to just pick the one I did recently. I can just scroll and pick any of them. But if I've actually pinned, why do we pin files? You pin files that you use recently, because the more you keep opening more files, keep saving more files, they will be just queuing up at this recent here. So but if there is a particular file you use often, it's important you pin it. How do you pin? For example, I can just right click on this file now and I click pin to list. So when I right click on it again and then click pin to list, you will have it under pinned. So when you come to pinned, you will have all your pinned workbooks or files. Alright, so under new, basically we just have what I just explained under the home tab here. So under the new, we can start a new workbook and then pick from any of these templates. We can as well search for templates online. And when we go to open means that we really just want to focus on opening. So we can open from recent, that means files we've saved or opened recently. Open from OneDrive. OneDrive is a cloud storage space provided with Windows. So if you're using Microsoft Windows or Windows operating system, you would have your OneDrive. Then this PC will actually allow you to be able to browse through to find a particular drive that is connected to your system where you can open your workbook. Now add a place, you can add a network place. If you work in an organization where all the systems are connected to a network, you can do that. Then browse specifically means you want to browse to locate where you want to open the files from. So again, you can see what we have here. Workbooks. This actually shows recent workbooks, and folders. It shows folders that I've accessed recently. Beautiful. Now, so from this window, let's go back to the home or the new. We're going to begin the journey. So we'll just click on the blank workbook. The blank workbook will take us to the main Excel window. So we're going to be looking at some of the components of this window. Again, I like to just exit. There are also different ways you can exit your Microsoft window. So to exit means to close. All right, so you have to bring your mouse pointer to the close button on the title bar. You just click on it to exit your window, or you can press alternate F4 on the keyboard. So let me open Excel again. I have my Excel open now, and then I'll click on blank workbook. Alright, so here now we're going to be looking at the component of the Excel window. I have all the components already arranged here. When we say the components or the features of the Excel window, we're actually saying when you open the Excel window, what and what do you see? Everything here has a name and it has their own function differently. And when you say you're learning Excel, we're actually going to be learning how to make use of all of these tools, all of these options, all of these buttons, all of these commands, and that's actually what we're going to be learning, apart from maybe just writing formulas and writing codes. But every other thing falls within this window. Now the first thing we have on the Excel window, which is actually common and is always the first thing on every window, is the title bar. The title bar. So you can see where I have my mouse pointer here. I'm going to drag it down to this point. I have the title bar here. So what does the title bar do? The title bar, as the name implies, carries the title of the document. In this context, the title of the workbook, or you would say it carries the file name. So the things you're going to find on the title bar are the file name, that's the name given to the document. If the document has been saved, just like what I have here, you now see a size 1 Excel Windows component. But if I go to the one that was not saved, Excel will automatically give me a temporary file name called book 1. So here's why I have book 1 here. Alright, so let's continue. Now after then, the next thing you will have on the title bar is the name of the program, and that's why we have Excel here. So if you don't call it Microsoft Excel, you can as well call it Excel. So we have Excel here. After then, we have what we call the control buttons. The control buttons are very important. These are just these 3 buttons here. The first one is the minimize button. When you minimize a particular window, it gives way for another window to be displayed. You minimize again. When there are no more windows, you would be seeing your desktop. So when a window is minimized, it doesn't mean that the window is closed. You actually have the window minimized and you can pick it up from the taskbar. So for example, I'll bring my mouse pointer to this point and I pick it here, and you can see what I have here. I can easily click here and I have. So if I have more than 5 or 4 or 6 Excel window, they will just pile up here, and then you can pick any one you want. Now after the minimize button, the next button there is the maximize and restore button. The button has 2 functions, so I like you to pay attention to this icon very well. If I click on this now, pointing my mouse pointer, it's already showing restore down. The reason why it's showing restore down is because the window is already maximized, so I can click on it to restore the window. When you restore the window, you make your window smaller, but the window is not minimized. You only make it smaller, and when it's smaller, it gives room to resize the window. That is reducing or increasing the size to just the way you want it, and you can easily move it and keep it where you want it. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So if I click on this restore, you find out what I have here. So at this point my window is restored. So let me minimize this other one so that we can see it very well. I like to hide my desktop icon, so let me just hide that. Okay, so at this point it's okay. Now you can see how my window is. So at this one, if looking at this window now, I will say that this window is restored. So I can either maximize the window to make it full and fill up the entire screen, which is actually the same button again. So that's why we call it maximize or restore button. I'll just click on that same button again. Now, but like what I have here, I can as well resize the window. So I'll just click and drag to resize. You see what I have here. I'll click and drag to resize. I'm resizing my window, and you can see that Excel is just categorizing everything, compacting them into one different categories because the size of the window has been reduced. So what's the function? Why do we resize or restore a window? Sometimes you want to drag an item from one window to another window. You may need to restore your window, and sometimes you also want to compare content in another window with this particular window, and you can have two windows. So for example, again, you click on this middle button, that's the restore button, and you have your window like this. So with the mouse pointer on any of these edges, you can resize. You can see where my mouse pointer is, so I can click and drag to resize it diagonally. So I can have it here horizontally. I can also resize it here vertically. Now I'm going to show you something. So here now I can move the window. How do you move the window? When your window has been restored, you can click on the title bar. So here's my title bar. You drag the window to keep it one place. So now I'm going to go pick up another window. So let me see this other one. I'm going to restore this one as well. So I'll just come down here, restore, and I'm resizing it, and I can move it here and keep it somewhere around here. You see what I'm doing here? Beautiful. So basically here I'm just resizing this, and you can see now, in case there is anything I wanted to compare with these two windows, I would have done that now because I've been able to resize the two windows and placing them side by side. Though there's a window option, you can do that. But so that's it with the title bar, and of course one of the control buttons called the maximize or restore button. There are three control buttons: the minimize, the maximize or restore, and the close button. So now the close button is simple. The close button is just the exit button. This is where you click on it, you will exit the window. Okay, beautiful. So here, after then, the next thing we have on the title bar is actually the ribbon and tab options. I'm going to be talking about the ribbon and tabs, but here's this button here. The button allows you to auto hide your ribbon, and you can see if I find my window this way, there's absolutely nothing to be panicked about. It's just for me to bring my mouse pointer back to this point and click on it, and then I'll click to say show tabs and commands, and that will actually show everything. I'm going to be talking about that. Here you can just say okay, show tabs, and the keyboard shortcut here is Ctrl F1. If you press Ctrl F1 on the keyboard, you will minimize and restore the ribbon, or you collapse and maximize the ribbon. So you press the Ctrl key on the upper row of your keyboard. You will find F1, F2 after the escape. You find F1, F2, F3. So you press the Ctrl key, you press F1, and there you will find that. Okay, so now we move on to the next component. Now the next component is the quick access toolbar. The quick access toolbar, as the name implies, the quick access toolbar displays or contains buttons and options for quick access. So you have the quick access toolbar here. It shares the same row with the title bar, except you just relocate it. I'm going to show you how to relocate it from this point. But here's the quick access toolbar. So on the quick access toolbar, you see we have the undo, the redo button. At default, you have three buttons. So let me go and reset my quick access toolbar. If you click on this arrow just beside here, and then you come down to more commands, you would have options. So I just want to reset. Okay, I'll just click yes, and then I click OK. So at default, you have these three buttons: the save, the undo, and the redo on the quick access toolbar. If you have been using computer for some years, there's what we used to call the standard toolbar. That's what they have been proved to call the quick access toolbar. It has similar function. Okay, so now I have just 3 buttons on the quick access toolbar. What if I want to add more buttons? If you click on this button here, the drop down arrow to customize the quick access toolbar, you can add more. You can see I've just added new. I click. I can add open. I click. I can add email. I click. I can add quick print. I click. I can add spelling. I click. I can add sort ascending, sort descending. You can even right click on any of the icons or buttons or options on the ribbon and add to the quick access toolbar. Let me show you. For example, I want to add conditional formatting to the quick access toolbar. I can right click on it and I say add to quick access toolbar. So you would find the conditional formatting here. Maybe, for example, I want to add what's it again? Okay, evaluate formula. I can right click and I say add to quick access toolbar. So what that means is that anytime I'm working, I don't need to go click on the formula bar, the formula tab, and then come start looking for evaluate formula. No. Now, so what it happens is that I've already added it here for quick access. So anytime I click on it, it will help me to be able to debug my formulas in my worksheet. And that's exactly how it is. Again, so we can remove. How do we remove? So you see that I've added buttons, and the more buttons I've added, it actually increasing in size. So let's go see how we can remove it. We can click on that same button, that's the drop down arrow to customize the quick access toolbar. We click on more commands. From more commands, we come down here. What happens is that you have a whole lot of commands that you can add, and this is only the popular commands. If we say all commands, macros, commands in the ribbon, there are so many of them, but let's focus on this one. So I can add align center. I can just click here and I click add. You have it this point. I can click copy. I add. You have it this point. I can click cut. I add. So that's how it means. I can equally remove. So anyone I want to remove, evaluate formula, I click remove is off. Conditional formatting, I click remove is off. So I can as well move this reorder. I'm moving this one up, I'm moving cut up. I'm taking out email, for instance. If I click OK now, that's exactly what we'll have on the quick access toolbar. But if I want to reset, return it back to the default, remember we have 3 buttons at default: the save, the undo, and the redo. So I click on it and then I'll come to more commands. On more commands, I'll just click on reset. So here I have reset only quick access toolbar. I'll click yes and I'll click OK. So you can see that my quick access toolbar has been reset. So I'm left with only those 3 buttons. But the quick access toolbar is the only component in this window that can change its location. For example, if you just click on it, you can now have show below the ribbon. So I'm now bringing my quick access toolbar below the ribbon. I'm going to be talking about the ribbon very soon. So I can as well right click on the quick access toolbar and say show above the ribbon. All right. So I can right click and remove anyone from the quick access toolbar, and that's exactly how it is. Like minimizing the ribbon, we can right click and say okay, collapse the ribbon, and we can right click and remove that. So that's the quick access toolbar. After the quick access toolbar, the next component we're looking at here is the file menu. Now you see I'm putting file menu or office button. The difference is that if you're using a lower version of Excel, say like Excel 2007, you will not find file, but rather what you will find is a button. We call that button the office button. So from office 210, that's Excel 210 up, so 210, 213, 216, 219, 365, and then Excel 2021, you will find the file menu instead of the office button. But do not be confused, they contain the same options. So on the file menu here, we have different options to save, open a new workbook, to print, to export, to share, and even our word options. So as we continue in the course, we're going to be learning about some of the options we have here. So that's the file menu or the office button. Now I'd like you to pay attention to each of these features, because as we continue in the course, we're going to be saying something like you go to the file menu. So if we're saying that you already understand what the file menu is, we're going to be saying something like you go to the design tab, so you already know what a tab is. Alright, so let's continue. Now we have the tabs. Tabs are here. So the home, the insert, the tab, the page layout, the formulas, the data, the review, the view, the help are all called tabs. So the tabs works with the ribbon, and they just work together. All right, so the one below here will have this gray space here, the whole of where my mouse pointer is moving now, is called the ribbon. Don't worry, I'm going to send you a labeled window, so you would also look at the picture I've sent to you, labeled window, and to reflect on it again. So you see what I have here. On this here we have the ribbon, so you can see my ribbon here, and here's the tab. So the tab controls the ribbon. All right, so we can have something like the home tab, the formulas tab, the review tab, the help tab, the home tab, the data tab. At the same time, the data tab is the data ribbon. So you would hear something like go to the page layout ribbon. What it means is that you should click on the page layout tab so that you will have the page layout ribbon. Now, one thing about the ribbon contains buttons, options, and commands that allow you to carry out various tasks in your workbook or your spreadsheet window. Now, it is very important you pay attention, because let's assume that I want to bold, like is already bold. I want to just give this a fill color, let's say light blue, like what I have here, and I have my data ribbon. I'm not going to find that option here, so I would have to go to the home ribbon and then would find the option at this point. So that's exactly how it is with the ribbons and the tabs. Now we have the name box, so I'm going to skip the name box, the formula bar, and then talk about the cells first before I'll come back to that. So when I explain that, you understand very well. We have here cells. What are cells? Cells are just the intersection of the row and column, or these boxes that we have here, they are cells. Let me put it that way. These are just cells here, and you have cells here. They are just areas in this worksheet where you can contain a small piece of an individual information. So all of these are cells. Now the cells is made of, in the intersection of the row and the column. So we have the columns. Which one are the columns? The columns are the vertical set of cells. So these are columns. We have the columns, you have the columns, and we have the rows. The rows are the horizontal set of cells. So rows, and there's what we call the column and row heading. Now the letters here, or the alphabet here, or represent the columns. So column A, column B, column C, column N, column D, column Z, column Q. So those are the columns. The letters here, or the alphabet here, represents the columns, and while the numbers here represent the rows. So we have the row 1, row 2, row 3. There's nothing like column 3. No. We can actually say the third column. That means you're referring to a part, and somebody working will understand. But you can't say column 3. You can say the fifth column. It's okay. But you can't say column 5. No. It can only be row 5. Can only be column E. Can be column F. Can be column G. Can be column L. Can be column A. So these are the columns. Now if you want to select an entire column, you bring your mouse pointer to the column heading. Like if you notice my mouse pointer at this point, I just click on it and you have the entire column selected. I bring my mouse pointer to this place, I click on it, you have the entire row selected. I bring my mouse pointer, I click on it here, you have the entire column selected. What if I want to select multiple columns? I will just click here and hold down my mouse pointer. You see it's moving. I'm selecting multiple columns. At the same time, if I want to select multiple rows, I'll click and drag, and then to select multiple rows. I'm going to tell us why we need to select columns as we continue in the course. Now columns can be resized, so you can, just like the rows, you can make it bigger or smaller. All right, so how do you resize a column? Let's assume I just typed something like Microsoft Excel, and if I type something like Outlook in the next column, you find out that Microsoft is not showing again. So in this situation, I would have to adjust my column width in order to accommodate what I've just typed. So here, how do you do that? You bring your mouse pointer on the border between two columns. So we have the border between two columns. You now click and drag. When you click and drag, you would be able to adjust the column. So for example, here I click and drag. So let's assume I'm having something like sex, a heading like sex, and I don't really need, I will just need to type M for male, F for female. So do I really need to leave all of this big space? Let's resize it. I'll just close it up so you can see what I have here. Now there's what we call auto fit selection. So if I select the columns like what I have here and then still take my mouse pointer to that point and double click, the columns will adjust itself to fit the content. So we call it auto fit selection. So it will automatically adjust itself to fit based on the content of that column. So that's how it is. The same thing with the rows. We can just bring the mouse pointer in between two rows and then you click and drag to adjust the row, and you would see that. Now what if you want to give your column a specific measurements? You can do that. So at default, you can see the default width. The column width is 8.43 and that's 64 pixels. The column is the width, the row is the height. Nothing like row column height and row width. No, it's column width, row height. So you can see at default we have the width is 8.43, 64 pixels, and at default here the row height is 15.00 20 pixels. 8.43, 64 pixels for the columns, and the row 15.00 20 pixels. So if I want to change my column width, let's assume I've been given a specific measurement for my column and they say, okay, let your column should be 4.3 or 5.3. Do I have to click and be dragging and be doing this? No. One thing about computing is that we maintain speed and accuracy, so you're going to stress yourself, working yourself out trying to achieve that. In such a situation, what you have to do is to click and drag on the affected columns or the number of columns you want to customize or you want to adjust the width. When you have that, you right click on the column, just right click on the column heading after selecting it, and then you click on column width. So from here I would say my column should be 4.5 to 4.5 for instance, and I click OK, and you see what happens here. All my columns have actually changed. So I can do the same thing here. So I select these 6 columns. You can see that 6E, that means that 6 columns have been selected. Now you right click on the column heading, not on the cello where you have this alpha letters here, is where you right click. So when you right click, you click on column width, and then let's assume you've been given, I like you to take note of this because as we continue to advance, you have need for this. So let's say column width is 3.2. I'll now press enter, and you see exactly what I have here, the column. So the same thing for the rows. We can just select here, right click on the row height, we come down to right click on the row heading, I beg your pardon, we come down to the row height. We can now say, okay, we don't want 15, rather give us 20. We now press enter, and you would see the adjustment there. So the columns, vertical set of cells, the rows, horizontal set of cells. The letters represent the columns, the numbers represent the rows. I do not want to assume that everybody had already known that. Okay, so let's move on. We've seen